the only way to start your day.
Morning, round around, right about democracy. I already know what I think. But because we're having a conversation, we're inviting these great minds to talk with us. Martha Wambui is a lawyer and a founder of She's a Freak Hub. She'll tell us a little bit about that. Jackson Obare is a Forum CIV Regional Manager, East and Southern Africa. And he joins us this morning. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Thank you for being here this morning, even as we get into some of these conversations, democracy, and whether we need to be reflecting on the state of democracy in Kenya at the moment. We'll get into that in just a bit. But we want to welcome you to today's show with today's proverb. Dennis will tell you where it is. We would love to hear your interpretation of it.
Okay, so we are in West Africa. And in West Africa, there's a country that made history by transitioning from a dictatorship to a democracy in the early 1990s. So this country was actually formerly known as the Kingdom of, is it Dahomey?
Dahomey. Yes.
Dahomey,
Yeah.
okay, and was renamed Benin. So in Benin, they also say it's the birthplace of voodoo religion.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't know that. I thought it was Haiti.
See, now, where did Haitians come from?
Was it Benin?
Haitians were
From West
actually
Africa.
generations of slaves that were released from West Africa.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, okay, so Ali exports.
Yes.
All right. So in Benin, they have a proverb, and the proverb is, if a child insists they can swallow an axe, simply hold it for them. How would you interpret that, Jackson?
Thank you so much, Dennis.
If a child insists they can swallow an axe, simply mpatie tu, hold it for them.
Hold for them to swallow.
Yeah.
My interpretation is if you are demanding for something, you should be given, because then you know why you are demanding or looking forward for it. And so it is symbolic to mean, for example, if you are demanding for accountability or democracy, why should those in power not give what you are demanding for if it's accountability of with the resources? And in this case, when you say it was a country emerging from dictatorship to democracy, I have to imagine how people really demanded. It did not just happen. It didn't just happen that you are now moving from a dictatorial state to a democracy state. And as you know, Frederick Douglass once mentioned that power concedes nothing without demand. It never did, and it will never will. It means if you want an axe, the child is asking, let it be given to him.
All right.
Okay. Martha?
For me, I would relate it to the Swahili proverb that mtoto akililia wembe mpe. And for me, it goes to if the citizens ask for something or demand for something, if it's they are asking for policies that have to do with the education, have to do with the healthcare system, listen to them and act in accordance to their demands. It doesn't matter whether it's hurting. So it's about just listening to the other person and giving them what they demand.
It's interesting because of hard politicians. I've just remembered saying, you are the people who voted for this government.
Yeah.
So in other words, if you're feeling the pain and the pinch, and you're feeling that hurt, you go ahead, feel it.
Look
You're
in the mirror.
one. Yeah, you asked for it, you were given. You know.
You got what you asked for, essentially. Right, okay. Well, we're going into a conversation around whether we need to be reflecting on democracy in Kenya at the moment. Well, let's start off, Jackson. What's democracy?
Of course, democracy, in my own understanding, comes from a form of government where people have the power to elect leaders who should be able to represent them, to legislate, and therefore the voice of the people should be the one to be heard. And as our preamble of the Constitution talks about, the power rests with the people, and therefore our leaders are receiving donated power to be able to lead the citizens. And therefore that state of where you can be able to freely express yourself, freely share within the defined rules of the country, that makes it my understanding as these are democratic states. Yes.
What about you, Martha?
For me, I would go back to Abraham Lincoln, who said that democracy is the rule of the people, by the people, and for the people. And it's about a citizen having that sovereign power in accordance to the Constitution. And I would want to see democracy as a house or a garden that we as a people, we have to maintain it. And you'll find for a house to stand, it must have a very strong foundation or a base for it to stand strong. And for democracy, you'll find in that house we have the people we have the people who elect the leaders, and in that house we also have institutions. And it's for us as stakeholders in democracy to continue nurturing democracy for it to be strong.
Okay. So today is the International Day of Democracy. Today, the 15th of September. Nations around the world celebrating democracy. In your opinion, what is the state of democracy in Kenya? Taking the definition of democracy, looking at the position in which Kenya is in?
I was looking at the report by Civicus Monitor, which usually highlights or rates countries in terms of the state of civic space. And Kenya, following the Gen Z movement last year and what has been happening, state crackdown of civic space, journalists, everybody being cracked down, Kenya was dropped down to repressive level from obstructed level a previous year. So that means citizens are much more controlled in terms of how they can freely express themselves, freedom of assembly. There has been increased extrajudicial killings. There have been increased abductions in this country. And therefore, in my own view, the state of democracy in Kenya, we have made progress in very many ways because we also have a robust constitution, but lots of institutions are also under strain. So democracy is under strain under the current, and that's my view of this country. But we believe that citizens are more agile and we are more pushing to ensure that we maintain the level of democracy that is required in this country.
Well, yet, Jackson, the Kenya's constitution 2010 envisioned a situation where government then is held accountable to its people. And there are chapters there that from the Bill of Rights, and it almost feels like we are currently, you have a population that is very aware of what their rights are and their space and how to also demand for certain things to be done or demand for better governance from their leaders. But against that, it also seems that we have a leadership, I don't know whether to call it a crisis. I don't know. You guys can maybe help us understand exactly what's happening. So we are in a position where now leaders, or those in government, appear to be pushing back. So the population is being enlightened. This is democracy. We're not in a dictatorship. These are our demands, right from the interpretation of the proverb.
Yes.
But now you have on this other side a pushback. And you know what? You're not going to have it your way. Yet the Constitution is the one that holds all of us and binds all of us together and binds democracy so that both parties can then exercise their rights within the framework of the Constitution.
So what's the question, Dennis?
The question is, when you have on this one side leaders, on this other side you have people who are now more enlightened, they know more about their rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. Does it appear to be the leaders of those in government are threatened by the awareness that people know this is our space in our democracies, this is what we demand? Is that your feeling?
I have the same feeling, like those who are in power. We are different generations, right?
Mm-hmm.
A generation where everything they were told, they used to take it and they would not question. So most of the leaders in power comes from that generation. You could not question, your father tells you this. Now we have a generation that asks, wait a minute, you are telling me this, but this is what is provided for. Why can't you be able to allow us or provide what is given to us, even by the status of this country? So that questioning those leaders feel they are losing their authority, because now you feel like your child is asking you a question as a father, and you feel like, where is that coming from?
Wacha kuuliza maswali mingi.
Wacha kuuliza maswali mingi. And I think the leaders should come to realization that what is being put there in the constitutions as rights should be respected and provided, because they are not losing their power and authority because that's been donated to them. In so doing, then there's this balancing. Of course, also not having the excesses, because you can also ask things that are not realistic, because our constitution is much more progressive, right? Mm-hmm. There are things put there to be achieved over time. They may not be achieved, all of them today, but we must show signs that we are progressing towards these steps of achieving what has been defined as rights for the citizens. So I think the fact that we are generations, that an older generation that is feeling like you are threatening our base, and the young generation saying, we want to occupy this space. Because remember, Dennis, we are saying Africa has an average population age of 19. It's the youngest continent in the world. And what does that translate into? These young people cannot be told you are leaders of tomorrow. They should be the leaders of today and also partners of tomorrow in development. And in so doing, they need to be fully empowered with the necessary tools and resources to ensure that they are also participating in the governance discourse of this country.
Okay.
Thank you.
So even as we say that we need to be seen to be practicing democracy, I want to get into then whether there are types of democracy and whether those can actually be tweaked. But what would you see, Martha, as someone who's actually worked towards championing voices? What are some of the barriers towards people then being able to practice democracy in Kenya today?
Thank you for the question. And I would want to relate it to young persons when it comes to young persons participating in democracy. And as a young person, I would say it's marginalization when it comes to decision making. You'll find that Kenya and Africa in general, we have a very youthful population. But when it comes to decision making, the young people are left out. You'll find that during political campaigns, young people are used as vehicles for mobilization, for organizing, and they'll do hard work. They will labor for those political parties. But when it comes to appointive or nomination seats, they are left out, and they are often told, you are so young, you still have time to climb the political ladder, you are not experienced. So you find young people are left out, and there's a trend that I've noted when it comes to political parties. This is the time that you'll find there are a lot of political movement made up of young people mushrooming. And also it's the time that you'll find that the youth leagues in political parties are very active. But for the last 2 years, you'll find they have not been active. And it's my call for political parties and other stakeholders to be very intentional in building the capacity of young people, because for us to build and strengthen democracy, it must be daily work through active citizenship. So for me, one of them is marginalization when it comes to decision making, and also insufficient resources or funds. You'll find that taking part in democratic activities, it's an expensive affair. And I'll give my personal experience as a representation of other young people. In my early years as a comrade, I used to be a member of a certain political party, and we used to push for constitutional reforms. And each and every day I used to save 60 bob, amounting to 300 in a week, for me to attend a political meeting at Lavington in Nairobi. So you can imagine.
Why? Was that for like your fare or for what?
Yeah, it was for my fare as a comrade, just for me to attend a political meeting. So you can imagine a young person from Kasipul, Kabondo, from Nyaribachache, from Lamu, from Kericho, how are they going to attend a meeting in Lavington in Nairobi? They will have to budget for their accommodation, their travel, and that's how they are left out when it comes to decision making. And it's time for political parties to be very intentional about grassroots organizing. You'll find those offices at the villages, they are only active during the party primaries and during the electioneering period. So it's time for political parties to bring democracy to the grassroots. And also when it comes now to resources for young people, for you to vie for a political seat in this country, people assume that you have money, and you don't have that money. You just have your good ideas, your manifesto, and you try to present them to the people. And you'll find, for you to stand in a rally to address people, after the rally, people will ask you, Muhesh, umetuachia nini? And there are certain local terms and words in our communities, such as kuchoma jeshi. You'll find that if you don't have that money to give out to the voters, some of them will abuse you, some of them will call you names, and you'd rather have 1,000 Kenyan shilling and divide it into 50 to give it to the people. And there's your opponent who will give out maybe 500 shillings to the voters, and people will clap for that person. And you'll find also during political campaigns, that's when religious institutions, they have development projects upcoming, and they will invite you as a young person to go to church. And as a young person, you'll give out your 2,000 or 3,000, and your opponent will give out 100,000 shillings. And they are very intentional. By announcing Muheshimiwa A has given us 2,000, Muheshimiwa B has given us 100,000, and at the back they will say, heri tuchague ule Muheshimiwa kwa sababu ana support kanisa.
Ametoa pesa mingi.
Ametoa pesa nyingi. And that is, you are dealing with the community. Now when it comes to the political parties themselves, for me, I'll say that political parties are businesses, and they specialize in the business of auctioneering. So you'll find they will sell these certificates to the highest bidder, and you'll just pay 15,000 for your nomination. And behind, there are political cartels calling you, telling you, ongezea 100, ule mwingine.
Okay, so... Not only is this a travesty of justice when it comes to democracy, there is no democracy from the earlier definition that you gave, because the question was, what are the barriers towards achieving a proper state of democracy in Kenya? Maybe that's even a wrong question, because then by the definitions given and the experiences that you talk about, which are clearly across board, democracy doesn't even exist. We can't talk about the state of democracy because it doesn't exist. Is that too radical, Jackson?
I think democracy does exist, because that's one lens of looking at it. It's how people have cannibalized this system of governance to make it individualistic in terms of their benefits, because what she's describing is what's happening. It's kind of cartels who want to hijack these noble processes that meant to hear.
Based on the definition, Jackson,
yes,
that the voices of the people will be heard unto action on a national scale. That's the definition of democracy.
Yes.
Here, where people have to pay 15,000 shillings to get a nomination, nobody could care less. After that, what happens? Did the voices of the people come into play? No, they did not. The voice of the shilling did.
Yes.
Did the aggression or the movement at the ground, the grassroots, then affect national issues? They did not.
So I think you are right, and what she's describing is the real situation that is happening on the ground. So, of course, you can ask, do we have democracy? That question is you can still ask. Democracy is there, but I think there's lots of obstructions of ensuring that democracy is working. Do we have a better form of governance that we can say that is better than democracy? That will be another debate, depending on which perspective somebody looks at it from. But I still think the enjoyments of rights that we do have in very many respects, despite the leaders being selfish in very many ways, competing to that highest office and amass as much wealth as they could, that is obstruction of the democratic wills of these citizens of the country because of self-interest. And basically that is corruption, because where will you be getting this money dishing out every other weekend? I don't know, Dennis and I don't know where you go out also invited to be dishing money every weekend to places. You don't have such source of money to be doing that. So it's just buying the citizen voices and claim that the voices of the citizens are heard and the decisions made in this country are based on their voices. No, they are based on the shilling, as you are mentioning it, for some of the citizens who are receiving that. And I want to give an example. I mean, of course, if you're asking if you talk about public goods that are supposed to be enjoyed by all citizens and talk about development in this country, we cannot be having people coming together every other weekend to go to State House to receive development goodies. Yet we know these are the public goods that should not be enjoyed. So it shouldn't be we are coming and saying, oh, you're happy about what you are doing and now bring development to us. We know what the devolution has done. Counties are given resources, including equitable sharing of resources based on county situations.
Yeah.
And in so doing, then, we should be having a situation where these public goods are shared across. And therefore, the aspect that we need to be coming to a leader and knocking the door and saying, we're happy and we need more, should be able to be the thing of the past. That makes what she's saying about you need to be coming, the Mheshimiwa alipeana 100,000, we ulipeana shilingi 2,000, now you don't deserve to be our leader, so let's elect the one who gave us 100,000. The one who gave 100,000 is an investment that will come to immediately they're in office. They start recouping back their investment.
Yeah.
And what they do, diverting development resources to their personal interest because somebody financed their campaign and therefore they have to recoup or pay back those investments.
You know, there's something Martha talked about. It's the whole process. And I feel what you're saying, where here's a situation where unless you have money, nobody's going to listen to you. Somebody who is corrupt has an upper hand. Or this young person, like she was saying from the days of when she was comrade, somebody has to then endorse you and say, this is the person that I think. If you want to get up, I remember a story where this young man in Mombasa, many years ago, I'll never forget this story. I was crossing a road, Moyavani, met this gentleman coming out of fish and chips joint, almost getting knocked by a matatu. I had to go grab his arm because people were screaming. He was absent-minded. Took him to the side and asked him, what's going on? Are you okay? Are you feeling well? And the gentleman later knew who I was. Back then I was working for a radio station. Then he said, I've just come from Changamwe. And he had taken a matatu to town. So he was just getting to town to grab something to eat. Then he didn't know where exactly he was going. Reason is, he was promised by the party leader. I'll not mention the name of the party leader. He was promised that, you know what? For this seat, the ticket is yours because the people are with you. But he was told, because the call Martha was talking about, because people are calling at night, calls are being made, he was told, you know what, there is somebody who's coming with some money and this money is going to help the party during the campaigns. So do you have something that you can do? The gentleman went and took a loan from his circle, took $1 million. This young man took $1 million. Then he took it to the party leader, gave the money, and he was told, now the ticket is yours, you've secured it. Yako ni mingi. Only to get to Changamwe, and on the list, his name was not there. Then he was told by the party leader, no, don't worry. Something just happened late at night, but you don't worry. When you take over government, we're going to give you a cabinet position or some position somewhere. So you were relaxed, utapata. He realized, and the party was not one of the biggest parties in the country, he realized he's actually been scammed. Yeah. But he couldn't go to report to police, he couldn't do anything. So Martha, the question that I'm asking, because democracy is always tied, conversations around democracies are normally tied when you're just about to get into elections. And we understand from the definition, from what Jackson and yourself talked about, democracy isn't just about elections, it's about civic participation then. It's also about accountability. It goes beyond freedoms. How healthy, in your opinion, Martha, all these election cycles we've had, all the conversations we've had, promulgated a new constitution, how is Kenya's, in terms of the health status, how is Kenya's democracy today if you are to use that broader yardstick for the things that I've just mentioned?
For me, I would term it as a toxic relationship between the citizens and the leaders. And you know, sometimes you'll be told by your friends, don't go back to that ex, because you have had that time to engage with your ex,
Yes.
and you have seen them, how they have treated you. And such is with democracy. You'll find that we have had that chance to interact with our leaders. We have seen their track record, but you'll find us, the voters, going to the ballot box, knowing they are toxic, but still cast their vote. Tell me, and it's very strange to understand, tell me, how will you go to the ballot and vote for a person who has been accused of stealing the youth funds, and you beautify that in a ballot box? Tell me how you'll go in a ballot and vote for a person who has been has been presented in an international criminal court, and when things go bad, they are complaining, so and so hatufanyii kazi. So for me, I would term the relationship between the citizens and the leaders, it's a very toxic relationship. But I do understand, you'll find as a suitor, when you're in a new relationship, they'll tell you very sweet words. They'll tell you they'll do A to Z. But when now it comes to them getting what they want, they'll just disappear. And that is with democracy. The leaders will come with very sweet manifestos, very sweet words, and with our emotions, and with that hope, we will give those leaders our votes. So for me, the relationship in Kenya, in terms of democracy, it's very toxic.
Okay. Is it time, perhaps, even as we look at these things, when we look at democracy as, as a practice, it was handed down from in a particular place where a situation was playing out. Folks said, you know what, the people ought to be involved in this thing. And that is how this whole ideology was born. And it worked for them at that time in that place. It was then handed down as, okay, this is the way actually things should be done. Maybe folks have tried, maybe not hard enough, maybe we've not done all that needs to do. But do you think that democracy over time should actually evolve into something else that is workable and be called something else? Is it time?
I think so, because humanity also evolves over time. For example, in the fourth industrial revolution, technology is leading in very many ways. So you cannot sit back and say that now I cannot start using, I block myself. I cannot want to know what new technology AI is offering, and I want to block myself completely. That would be wrong, because knowledge is also increasing, things are evolving. So if democracy, it should be, I don't know what name will come after, because now we have citizen involvement and they feel excluded, yet the process defined that your voice is being heard. I think even into the future, democracy should evolve. I want to use an example. You know, the northern Kenya, when they talk about negotiated democracy, is it a democracy in the entire country? No, because they have decided for people who should represent them, they negotiate and say, God, is it the best one model? Maybe it works for them, maybe not, because also it creates marginalization. If you decide, then it's not your time. You are left, if you are promised next time and it works, better. But then we must adapt this process to our context as well. It's a borrowed concept, but really it's working in many ways, but we must really adapt to ensure that the voices are not excluded from decision-making spaces, what we have actually experienced. But I want to actually say that the main impediment for democracy is also corruption, because that is the center of things. Personal interest that permeates into public issues, and therefore, even if I had your voice and you have projected it well, But because I have personal interests, we can cut the deals with Dennis and the mother and exclude you from the process. I think that's one of the greatest impediment of having a responsible democratic processes in this country. Yeah.
So how do you remove self-interest from these processes? How have others been able to remove self-interest, corruption, just terribly bad behavior from these processes and being able to, at the very least, have systems that work? How have others been able to do it?
I think it's about the morality of individuals, because it also, even in this country, you also have leaders who are selfless, serving interest of the public, and they have done so. For example, if you use the case of Makueni County, because it was a county to be referenced. If you want to do this, go to Makueni County. Citizens are able to participate freely in their decision-making process. They monitor. The former governor, Kivuta Kibwana, he was a leader, the governor of the county, and he was able to put the interest of the county first before his personal interest, if any. And the way he carried himself, the way of life, it really demonstrated he's a selfless leader who is out there to serve the county and the citizens they're in. And in so doing, if we have such kind of examples, if we have many of them in this country, then I think we should be able to ensure that citizens are happy, provided with services that they need and everything they need. And therefore, you as a leader, your work becomes much more easier to be able to guide and give strategic direction of that, even at the national level. It's so difficult, but it's a bad behavior that we need to get out of people, but it's so difficult. You can't legislate for the bad behavior. We have all the rules in this country, but
because we still want, can I be radical? Is that okay?
Yes.
To ask the question, because we still want to talk about it. We still want to have conversations around things, and we've seen this bad behavior play out for decades, no, Martha? We've seen the people who go to the grassroots, who are struggling and say, I want to bring about a change. We have seen that they don't get a chance. We've seen that they have to pay money in order for somebody to then bequeath them with the opportunity to then hold that position. We've seen people rob countries and bleed countries dry, and we're still having a conversation about it. We have seen this bad behavior play out year after year after year. There have been stolen elections, there's been stolen money, nobody's ever paid for it, and the same people find their way back into positions of leadership. Why? Because we're still having a conversation with it. It's like the cat who plays with the rat, the proverbial rat. It plays and it brings it back and it lets it play around there a little bit. It's not hungry. If it were hungry, it would eat the thing. And we move on to find another one. We are not ready to have a conversation whereby systems are in place and things work. If we were, all I'm going to say is two names: Jerry Rawlings. Well, I don't think so. I don't think we're ready. I don't think we're ready to take the bold move to insist on certain things. And that's why I'm asking the question about where are we in terms of our democracy, if that is actually what we should be applying to governments and leadership, especially on this side of the pond. We're still having a conversation where we should be having action. We're still talking about it.
Yeah, I think a system, because this is a system, and a system as it is grounded roots. And if the foundation of the system was on values that were, for societal good, but over time, individuals, because it's behavior that keeps changing over time. So individuals who were working in this system over time put self-interest first. So I think the system needs to be looked at in
or
totality.
The people need to be removed.
Or the people. So, but how do you remove them also? Because they are the ones who they have put the system in their hands and they are controlling it. And therefore it means the people should be removed and the system at the same time. But which system can we replace with that democracy? That will be my question.
Also, to add on that, I think we are not ready as citizens. One, for you to hold a leader accountable, you must have that knowledge or information. You cannot go question someone that you have stolen 16 billion and you are not able to interpret the document. And you'll find it's up to us citizens to invest in knowledge, in understanding the governance processes, in understanding how parliament works. And I can tell you for sure, there is no politician who wants an enlightened citizenry. For them, if you are not enlightened, that is their power. And you'll find ourselves singing the same song, Nja, Umaskini, na Ujinga. Those are the things that the previous eras were trying to eliminate, and we are still struggling with that. So we need to ask that question: is it the citizens themselves, or it's the leaders themselves? So we still have a long way to go as citizens.
And yet, there's a global conversation. Earlier, we were talking about Nepal. We're following what happened in Nepal.
Yeah.
And the Gen Z protests in Nepal was a result of this same thing we're discussing. So you have leaders who are not necessarily, you are ideally, because even Nepal, they actually said officially it's the Federal Democratic Republic of Nepal. So democracy right there. But this generation, like Jackson was earlier saying, you have a generational shift where there's a generation that is saying, come on paper, these are our rights. On paper, this paper I'm referring to is the Constitution. This is what we demand from those in government. Yet, the same people who are in government are saying, you know what, we'll take our children abroad for further studies. They're graduating in Australia, in America, in Sweden, in European countries. They're actually sharing on social media, on Instagram, the opulence. They're wearing gold. They live lavish lives. Yet you look at the poverty levels in that particular country, it's incomprehensible. Then you get to a point where there's the ticking time bomb, where now there is something that will let the pressure loose. You ban social media. You're saying, you know what, we'll go as far as you're not going to have conversations amongst yourself. Like you said, the politicians don't want a population that is enlightened. So we're going to ban this thing. You're not going to have these conversations. That led to the protest. And we also what happened in Nepal. Are we having a generational shift that is saying, look, if you're not going to do as per the Constitution, we're going to actually force, and I was seeing some ministers who are actually forced to cross rivers, to walk on, almost nearly naked. Unbelievable scenes that the Prime Minister, Martha is laughing, the Prime Minister was actually chased out of his residence. Is that, Jackson, where, if you're not there right now, and this is not just about just Kenya alone, is that where this conversation seems to be heading? Because we're seeing countries that ideally are democratic countries are pushing its population to the brink where they will do these kind of things.
Yeah, I think we are in that situation now, given the fact that you say on one hand, you have a very enlightened young population who have understood on paper what should be really be provided for them.
Yes.
In practice, it's becoming different. And now they're questioning, and I think they are right in all respects. This is what the Constitution says that you should be able to do. But look, you are not doing it. So what do you want us to do? We want to force you to do it, or the system collapses and we have a system that actually works. And increasingly, because we started for Gen Z in Kenya, now that is Nepal. Also, you saw what happened in Indonesia. So this wave is...
Bangladesh did the same thing. In Uganda, the Gen Z tried, but
different.
Uganda didn't work.
Yeah, so it's time that has come, and those in power, they should actually listen. I was watching yesterday night, I can't remember, this was NTV, about on Saturday, the weekend, about the leaders, Africa. You are seeing Museveni just doing walking, doing fitness in wherever in State House, that behaving as a young person. You are seeing people who are 90s still contesting to be presidents of countries, and they have led their countries for 4 decades. If they have not changed the country in 4 decades, even if they lead another 100 years, the country will go in ruins. And these young people are saying, you know, we cannot see, you cannot be telling us you're the leaders of tomorrow when we are seeing our country is in the ruins and we cannot get the basic services that we need. And therefore, we need you out of power. So because of this, And of course, governments, there's transnational coordination. That's what I'm seeing over cracking down civic activities. You saw in Kenya, people going to Tanzania. Now, please, mukaeni na mambo yenu ya Kenya msilete hapa Tanzania, you know? In that way, it is showing that the people who are in power, they are conspiring to even shrink the space, close everything, and don't allow any voice to come up. It can only last for a short while because like a pressure cooker, you can't put that lid for long. It will come out. And when it comes out, the destruction is loud and everybody will be able to see the damage. I think it's high time those people in leadership, they need to listen to the voices of these young people. What do we want for this country? Let's have a conversation, and a genuine and honest conversation to ensure that bottlenecks that are in the system are addressed. But as long as Ndu was saying, you have the people in the system who are protecting it, they probably need to be the one to be removed, because the system may not be a wrong one, but the people spearheading the system could be the one who are the bad ones.
So Edwin asks a question on our socials this morning, and it's actually in line with the point that I was making earlier. And it's a difficult question to hear, but necessary. That when we talk about a different kind of leadership or governance, that can you put the responsibility of the selection of leaders on a population that is not entirely enlightened? So then comes in the issue of weighted voting, which a lot of people have considered, and the benevolence dictatorship, because you have tried these other things before. And we also know that in this part of the woods, that the masses, unfortunately, are the ones with a lesser shilling in their pocket, so they are easier to control. We can color it pink, but that's the truth. So, is it possible to have this? Because we said the people are involved, isn't it? And we said that the people need to be listened to, right? And the people need to make decisions. Is it possible to have these decisions made on a population that is not entirely enlightened?
It's not possible, but it's happening, right?
Is it? Do we have systems that work? Do we have proper selection of leaders? Do we have leaders who are being selected based on the knowledge of people who know for sure that these guys are going to do what they're going to do when they go into leadership? Do we have that right now?
No.
We don't have it.
Yeah.
Is it possible that this is as a result of an unenlightened population in the majority? It's difficult to hear, but it's the reality, isn't it?
Yeah.
I would want to say it's possible to have that conversation with the other half that is not enlightened, and we have to start at the grassroots level and speaking the language of the people and not speaking the language of documents. And the work that we do at She's Afrique as a community-based organization is interacting with communities by just teaching them basic constitutional rights in a language that they do understand. So for me, it's possible to have that conversation with the other half that is not enlightened in a simple manner.
How long does that take? Think about it. Ballpark. How long would it take to enlighten the population who, when things are moving, it's alive? How long would it take to enlighten? And this is where weighted voting comes in. Or this is when the benevolent dictator comes in to say, we don't have time for this kind of thing. We don't have time for people to be enlightened for us to then make the decisions about a present situation and not a future one. I get it. We want everybody to be involved in the pie. But having everybody involved in the pie has gotten us to where we are now, right? So is it time we started to look at a different way of doing things? As uncomfortable as that situation is. No,
it is. I mean, situations demand that new ways of doing things emerge as well. So, but is there the willing of the leadership to ensure that all citizens are informed? Is it in their best interest, for example, to ensure that this, because as Martha was saying, The moment the leaders know, they are better off if citizens are not informed, right? And therefore, you are asking them to ensure that all the citizens are informed. There are several ways. Actually, there are very many ways of ensuring that a majority of citizens are involved, as long as the leadership is positive about it. And we can use very many ways of creating all this messaging.
Jackson,
But
you do your work today in the present, of course, with knowledge from the past, historically. In jurisdictions gone that exist today or experiences gone by, what happened to individuals, caucuses, communities of people who were not ready to toe the line in history? What happened to them?
yeah, of course, I know what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not ready to toe the line and we're going in this direction as a leader, what happens to you?
You can be eliminated.
Exactly.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And if we are going straight and you want to take us left, and somebody comes in and says, no, guys, this is the way this thing is going to go, those who are uncomfortable and by showing their resistance to the new movement, using your words, were eliminated. And that's why I'm asking, is it time to, because we've coddled this thing for so long. We've talked about corruption in 2025 as though it was 1975.
We've been talking about the same stories
Forever.
forever.
Isn't it time to do things differently? We can talk about democracy. That's great. It was great for the Greeks. But guess what? They did the same thing too. They had a conversation with a few people who were enlightened and they said, let's move on. Democracy, sure. Not possible that 100,000 people had the same mind and that's what they took. No. It was a certain type of people who said, look, this is the way we're going with this thing. Let's go. And that's quite worked. Is it time?
Mother?
I think it's time with technology as an enabler of democracy. You'll find that most of these revolutions are people are mobilized and organized through social media. So we have departed from the traditional ways of doing things, and now we can leverage on technology to involve people. So there are a lot of avenues that we as citizens can use to enlighten the citizenry. And also, I would want to take, for example, Gen Z. For me, I see Gen Z as very disruptive in terms of disrupting the status quo. And I would want to declare them as the de facto opposition. They bring the energy, the vibe, their creativity. And you'll find them using also humor and carrying a placard and also using memes that maybe that an enlightened person back there, maybe at the village, they are not able to understand, but they will see maybe a meme with something to do with governance, and they are able to relate of what is governance. So for me, it also goes to using creativity in terms of art, in terms of talent, in terms of music, enriching those other half that are not enlightened.
No. Could it be, there was a time we had this conversation, by the time we had the 2010 constitution and it was taken out effect, there was a point when Kenyans they had had enough of the political space being controlled by, some of these political parties or political figures that historically are the ones who own that space. And in 2013 elections, less than 5 members of the National Assembly were elected as independents. And then 5 years later, in 2017, 13 members of the National Assembly were elected as independents. And we've been seeing this steady growth of the rise of independence. Is this one of the ways that is going to bring back democracy and the space where other voices then can come in that are alternative voices? Jackson?
I think the question about independent candidates numbers rising is because of what Martha described about the structure of political parties, how they are organized, how they are controlled. Because remember, political party is a formation of this an individual, and the individual has interest, and so they have they decide to choose who they want to be in that political
Yes.
party. Over time, since the space is locking you out and the citizens really want Mother to be their candidate, and therefore, irrespective of political party, she will be elected anyway. And therefore, if she's being blocked from access, then she's able to go independent and because of independent views and independent thinking. But there's also a catch. What happened to these candidates when they entered parliament?
Well, they get swallowed by the system.
They get swallowed by the system. So this system is a monster that you had independent thoughts, and now when you are there, you have to toe the line. One do saying, you cannot stand on our way. We want to change that county. We want to change that. What has happened to Kawira Mwangaza?
Yeah, we want to change it by any means possible.
By any means possible. So you cannot stand on our way. But it shows that citizens are ready to vote in individuals who they see and they trust that can deliver for their communities. But allow me to mention this because how this system has been viewed not to be working because of trust deficient. Because initially people were voting and trusting that leaders are going to do 1, 2, 3, and they did, right? But over time, people are coming and peddling lies and saying we are going to do this. They overpromise and they can't. Citizens now don't trust you, and that makes this system of democracy to start failing because of lack of trust.
Just to add, in terms of independent candidates, still we cannot dismiss political parties as cornerstone of democracy. But you'll find that independent, I know of some political parties in this country. Before, for you to enter in that political party, you have to go through cells. And in those cells, you are taught about what that political party stands for. So it's time for us as citizens or political parties to have education, what political party A or B stands for in terms of the values, in terms of the manifestos, in terms of the principle. Then we can choose what type of political party we can go to. Yeah,
definitely. On this International Day of Democracy, we've been having this conversation, and necessary for us to be aware of what's happening in our circles. Martha Wamboe is a lawyer and a founder of She's a Freak Hub, and Jackson Obare is the Forum CIV Regional Manager, East and Southern Africa. Thank you for being here with us this morning.
Thank you.
Conversations continue at 8:02.
This is the Situation Room, the only way